Welcome to Out of Bounds. I'm your host, Stephen Dennis. My guest today, Karishma Manzur. She's a scientist, a peace activist, and is running in New Hampshire for an open seat in the United States Senate. Karishma Manzur, thank you so much for joining me today on the Out of Bounds podcast.
Thank you so much, Stephen. I'm really grateful to be on your show.
I'm excited to talk to you today. And as we were sharing a bit back and forth before we started, there's a lot of overlap between the issues that you talk about on your campaign and what I talk about with my audience, either via my podcast or newsletter. Out of Bounds, so that way you're aware. The concept originated from what I feel like is it over the last several years, both on the left and the right, it feels like there's been a shrinking field of play of acceptable discourse, whether it was cancel culture on the left or on the right. If you're talking about posting a meme, you have the government knocking on your door, or whether it be linking anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism and trying to kind of stifle that conversation. And so in an effort to push back on that, I've created a space dedicated to expanding and elevating the discourse, having these conversations in a long form, thoughtful and nuanced context. To help do that, I start each one of these conversations with my guest, kicking off with an opinion, an idea, a perspective, or take that you've been maybe holding on to that might be viewed as polarizing, in opposition to the spaces that you might typically occupy, because I think it's good for people to hear things that maybe they don't necessarily agree with. I think it was Zoran who said maybe a month ago that if you're looking for someone who agrees with you 100%, stay home and just look at the mirror. So the floor is yours, Karishma, for your Out of Bounds take today.
Thank you so much. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak with your audience. So, I'm just a regular person. I just wanted people in my town to live and thrive. I want people in my state to live and thrive. And as I looked around myself and my community, I saw so many people suffering. The very visible aspect of the suffering is the folks who don't have a home. They are sleeping in their cars sometimes, sleeping in tents, sleeping on the streets. As someone who has faced homelessness in the past, this is very much a personal issue. I'm grateful that I was not necessarily sleeping in cars or streets, but it wouldn't have taken much to be in that level. But I was, after my father was killed, my mother and my siblings and I, we were all arrested. And we were basically under house arrest for a long time. And after that, we were just looking for a place to stay. And sometimes we were in a cousin's extra bedroom, 5 people squeezing into this bedroom, etc. And, you are not welcome. People don't want you there for a long time. You're a burden. So for me, from a personal perspective, like the basic thing a human being needs is just a safe place to put their head down. After a long day, when you come home, isn't it just like feeling like, oh God,
It's something you take for granted, right? When you're in the hustle and bustle of a 9 to 5, late stage capitalism, just having a bed, to rest your head on at the end of the day, for sure.
Hopefully you have a favorite chair, a place to sleep.
Yeah.
And that is your own, safe, clean, and your own. For me, this is just a basic human need, just like food is or healthcare is. And that's exactly what is motivating me. I just want to help people. In the richest country in the world, there is no reason why we have so many people who do not have a home, why so many people don't have access to high quality food, why people don't have access to healthcare. And that's really my North Star. And I try to work on this problem in the nonprofit sector, but you realize there's only so much you can do as a nonprofit leader. And the whole concept of nonprofits, to be honest, I love nonprofits. I think they're doing an amazing job. But a lot of the nonprofits wouldn't need to exist if the government was doing its job. If the government
That
was,
is a I have also worked in the nonprofit space as well, and uh, that is very well said. I mean, they're stuck in a tough position where, you know, many of them rely, in order to maintain their tax friendly status, they have to walk these nonpartisan lines, so they can't step too far into the fray. Um, but when we see crises, you know, spilling over to, you know, the nth degree that we see these days, um, it can be difficult for a nonprofit to remain kind of neutral. And then again, as you said, on the flip side, you know, if you had proper government services that you would think you would have in the richest country in the history of the planet, there may not be a need for these third party intermediaries. So
like
and
food
that
bank.
empathy, you know, thank you for sharing a bit about your backstory and that empathy. And I think it, once you understand your platform and what you talk about on the campaign trail, it's very clear to see where that empathy and that experience that you've dealt with manifests itself in the policies that you're advocating for, and that you know, should you be elected to the Senate, would speak to. Could you tell my audience more about your campaign? What inspired you? Or what was that kind of moment that said, I'm going to run? And more about the policy platform.
Sure. So I'm a scientist, I'm a progressive, I'm a peace activist. Those are three very important identities that actually inform who I am, and
Mm,
also the campaign. So, being a scientist, I'm very analytical. I look at a problem and then I try to see, well, what are the root causes of the problem? What are the potential solutions to the problem, and how can we implement it? So it's very analytical.
mm,
From the progressive movement, I am a progressive Democrat, which means I think um, people should come before profits, people should
mm,
come before corporations, people should come before politics. Therefore, I'm looking at ways, how can we improve people's lives, whether it's with scrapping the cap to make sure Social Security is solvent, providing Medicare for all, a universal health coverage like that, providing livable wages, affordable housing. So those are some of my more progressive solutions to the
mm,
problems people are facing. And then as a peace activist, I kind of related to the fact that this war economy is taking away so much money from our communities to bomb and kill people overseas. And even if we don't necessarily, even if people here on the ground don't care about necessarily brown and black bodies being destroyed, we should care because it's fiscally irresponsible. The
mm,
money that's going away to buy those 2,000-pound bombs
mm,
should be better spent fixing up our public education, helping rural hospitals open up, fixing up our parks and recreations, our roads and bridges. And so money out is money not here. And
mm,
so those are the three kind of identities. So I'm running for the United States Senate to serve the people of New Hampshire. I am absolutely dedicated, and this is my North Star. How can I improve people's lives right here in our granite state? So livable wages, and that means a minimum wage of at least $20 an hour. Affordable housing by fully funding Housing and Urban Development, which is a federal agency in charge of affordable housing. We can also fully fund Section 8 as well as workforce housing. And then providing universal health coverage to every American. And this is not an unusual concept, Stephen. There are people, there of the 33 developed nations, 32 provide universal health coverage, only we don't.
mm,
And we can pass Medicare for all, and that's what I'm going to fight for. And a sensible foreign policy. I'm not a pacifist, but I definitely don't want us to send our troops in harm's way based on faulty intelligence or war profiteering. My father was in the military. My younger brother is a law enforcement. We are a very service-oriented family, but at the same time, we are fine with dedicating our time and our family life to serving our nation. But that does not mean exploiting people and exploiting our service members. U.S. service members, when they sign up, they're signing up to protect our nation,
mm,
not a foreign genocidal government, not a foreign leader. That should not be how our foreign policy should be dictated. It should be based on national security and national interest. So yes, I'm running for the United States Senate to represent the people of New Hampshire.
It's a very, it's interesting to hear how you balance both the analytical side of your background, but also the humanist side of your background, and seeing how that influences your policies. I wanted to hone in a bit on the scientist kind of aspect. Congress is made up of a lot of lawyers, business people, nepo babies,
Yeah.
and you don't see many scientists, even at the appointed cabinet level, even maybe so, but these days even less so. So I'm just curious, if you could share more
Mhm.
about what what a scientist in the United States Senate would mean for the makeup of the Senate, and what it would bring to a body that most people are not thrilled with,
Mhm.
as it being an effective democratic organization.
So in the history of the US Senate, we have only had one PhD scientist.
Okay, there you
So
go.
let's send the second PhD scientist and the first female PhD scientist,
Yeah.
because I think that's exactly the problem. Not enough PhD scientists in the US
Mhm.
Senate. Too many lawyers, too many business people. Nothing against lawyers, nothing against business folks, but
Sure.
it's overrepresented.
Hmm.
Absolutely. And there's a tendency in our country to think about business people as being effective legislators, and that actually does not make sense.
Sure.
If
I
anything,
think we can see with our commander in chief that that's not necessarily proven out.
that man has a lot of other issues other than being a failed businessman. But
Yeah.
yes, because the United States government is actually the largest nonprofit. So a business person's thinking of profit over people. A nonprofit should be thinking of people first
Mm,
and foremost. So I'm coming from the nonprofit sector. Who better to be representative in the largest nonprofit than someone coming from the nonprofit sector? So that is one take. The other is that as scientists, I'm not very ideological. I don't care if a good piece of legislation is coming from the conservative movement,
mm,
liberal or progressive movement. What I want to always see is that going to help improve people's lives? And that's always going to be my North Star. I am going to work with anyone and everyone who is aligned in trying to improve people's lives. I'm going to work across the aisle to find folks who are going to want to increase the minimum wage to at least $20 an hour, to pass Medicare for all, um, to fund affordable housing, to have a sensible foreign policy. And it will be across the aisle within the Capitol, but also with organizations and other groups that are also aligned with these values. These are not red versus blue values. These are just
mm.
common sense policies to help improve the lives of Americans right here at home. So that is myself as an analytical person. I'm not ideological. Yes, I'm a Democrat, but I'm not necessarily. Um, it, it's people over politics is how I think about it.
It's hard to remember a time when there was so much overlap. I mean, there's always been, the kind of congressional uniparty, where rubber stamp defense spending bills and things like that in the Congress. But amongst the base, like, you have a shared, uh, in not enthusiasm, but you have a shared angst over the flow of money overseas to fund a genocide. You have a shared angst over the build of AI data centers in backyards, of against pushing back against flock cameras. Even people who voted for Trump 3 times and thought that immigration was an issue are now seeing the way that ICE is cracking down on communities, and they're showing up to ICE protests to rally
Mhm.
alongside, you know, a tried and true liberal. So it's an interesting time to see that, and I think Congress would be well served to have more folks who are willing to find those. Everybody always wants to champion bipartisanship, but oftentimes that bipartisanship happens at the sacrifice of the working, voter. And so, some of the issues that you're talking about, I think that there's a lot of overlap there. You recently completed a 10 county tour across New Hampshire in a beautifully painted or wrapped Karishma mobile. What did you learn from that experience of not only traversing the state, but of talking to the wide array of voters, from the seacoast to the mountains to the Massachusetts border? Was there anything that surprised you coming out of those conversations, or was it more confirmation of what kind of inspired you to run for office to begin with?
I realized how much I need to be in the Senate. I honestly do. And I'm not trying. There are people hurting.
Mm,
This so much. The governor is failing to help them. The federal delegation is failing to help them. The federal government is failing to help them. It's really sad. So there was a lot of communities are thriving in the Lakes region. I saw a lot of communities that are thriving because they are dependent on the tourism industry, and
sure.
at the moment, they are they're doing well, like Meredith and Laconia. So
Hmm.
what they're suffering from is the fact that a lot of their workers have to live further out. They cannot live in the communities
Hmm.
because many of the homes are now second family homes or short-term rentals or purchased off by private equity. This is the problem that they're facing. So almost 40% of the market there is actually no longer full-time residents.
Hmm.
Other places, especially in the North Country, unfortunately, after the paper mills left, it's not rocket science to know that when the major employer is leaving the community, that the state and federal government have to step in to figure out how the folks in that region are going to make their livelihood. And those places were abandoned,
Yeah,
and
that was literally
they
the word that was just on the tip of my tongue, was that's what these communities get left to be.
Yeah. And so there was a young man who was actually volunteering on my campaign, and he came to one of those stops, and he basically said the reason he's doing this is because he wants his town to be people to care about his town, and
Mm,
people to care about him and his family and his community. And he felt what I stood for was aligned with his values, and that this is exactly the type of representative that he wants. And so now he's volunteering. This is a young man, 21 years old. He's already
mm,
lost his father to substance use. He has several family members who have now turned to alcohol or substance use because he said there's so much despair. These folks are feeling abandoned psychologically, fiscally, and it's terrible. And we
mm,
don't have to be in this situation. We can absolutely have a thriving community everywhere. I also met with a mayor who basically said that it's not a small place. And he said Governor Ayotte has only visited once his town, and only to do a photo op, got out of the car, took a picture, and just left. Has never really had a chance to talk to him. I spent 1 hour walking with this mayor across his
mm,
town, and his love for his community, his pride for his community. He was showing all the places where if the state government did step in or the federal government did step in, that how he was able to revive places. But sometimes he had just had to turn to private companies to
mhm,
step in when, as the state and federal government was not doing enough. And you saw just a small amount of money that can come to revive a place. For example, there was this park or abandoned lot. It was left over, and it can be revived into an area where people can have summer concerts right next to the river. It would be a beautiful space. He needs about $1 million, just $1 million. That's it.
sure.
$1 million for you and I is a lot of money.
Hmm.
From the perspective of our country, it's not a lot of money.
Right.
And I'm thinking this particular town can benefit from this one project. And there are hundreds of such projects just
Right.
with $1 million.
In every county across the
Yes.
state, there are examples of this.
Yes. So our annual budget of New Hampshire is about 8 billion. What if we had another billion? $1 billion is $1,000 million. We can
Mm,
have 1,000 communities getting $1 million. I mean, that would be fantastic. We only have 221 towns and 13 cities in our state. Maybe some of them can get $2-3 million. I mean, that would be fantastic. So, and they could fix up the roads, the bridges, maybe fix up the public school, maybe fix up some other community center. And that's just a small amount of stuff. What if we got $2 billion? I mean, wow, that's a huge amount of money for a small state like ours. But instead of giving us the money, that is our own money. These are federal taxes that we pay. Instead of giving it to us, we send it off 20 billion to Argentina. Why does Argentina get 20 billion when people in New Hampshire are struggling? We give a 33 billion to Netanyahu. Why? That's one of the richest countries. Why does my taxpayer dollars have to go there? I want those taxpayer dollars to fix up my communities right here in New Hampshire. Why does Donald Trump take $10 billion from the Department of Treasury and put it into his Board of Peace, which is his own company or whatever entity that he's the board of, like the president of? Nothing to do with our federal government, nothing to do with New Hampshire. And yet $10 billion is now siphoned off. This is just daylight robbery going on under our noses. I want that money to come back to New Hampshire. That's it. I want our federal taxes to come back to New Hampshire.
And that has been, you see so much angst and frustration and pushback from voters on all sides over that issue of sending money elsewhere and not seeing that investment back at home. That is unfortunately just become kind of the status quo. And you're running against Chris Pappas, who is a congressional representative for a few terms, and he's looking for a promotion. And you had mentioned the governor earlier, and how to some people haven't really been made very publicly available. I know that's been very similar for your opponent in going such a long stretch without holding a publicly available town meeting or town hall. Could you speak to some of the contrasts between you and your opponent, and how that has resonated with the voters that you've talked to?
Sure. First of all, I believe in term limits. And so my opponent's career should have stopped after 3 terms in the U.S. House. I mean, term limits and getting big money out of politics will really help our government. It will become a true representative government of people that are there to serve us and not the donor class. I think if you haven't been able to fix the problems in 8 years, you do not need to go back to DC. Thank you for your service. Go back to whatever you want to do. Go on to your new career. But that's enough. I mean, how many more years does it take for someone to fix the problem? If you haven't done it, let's move on. So this sort of idea of career politicians is not very democratic, but this is what the donor class wants. The donor class knows who is a reliable vote, and they pour in millions to make sure that person gets elected and reelected and reelected over and over again. And that's what we're seeing right here in New Hampshire. What are my biggest differences? I believe in a minimum wage that is a livable wage of at least $20 an hour. He does not support that. I believe in a universal health care coverage with Medicare for all. He has never co-sponsored it. I believe in affordable housing through proper funding of HUD and Section 8 and workforce housing, as well as passing the Renters' Bill of Rights. He does not support these. I believe in due process and a humane immigration system, and I don't want people to just erode paramilitary force grabbing people off the streets of the United States and putting them in detention centers and sending them off to other places. But whatever Chris Pappas says, he voted for the Lake and Riley Act, which has empowered ICE to terrorize us. So take it with a grain of salt. What he says on the campaign trail about how much he cares is not true, because he voted for the Lake and Riley Act, which is a xenophobic, racist act that has empowered ICE agents. I believe in accountability. I believe in honesty, integrity. I am only going to answer to the people of New Hampshire. I only take money from campaign donations from regular folks, regular Americans. I don't take money from corporate PACs, corporations, foreign lobbies, etc. And my opponent does. He also does on the campaign trails say that he doesn't take money from corporate PACs, but he takes money from leadership PACs like Schumer leadership PACs or Hakeem Jeffries leadership PACs, which gets money from corporate PACs. So it's just a way to say that he doesn't take corporate PAC money when he does. It's just
Right.
one
It becomes a semantics argument, and
and
that's
that's a
also
money
new.
laundering scheme.
Right. I mean, it is. There's definitely a racket element to it, and that's
Yes.
also new because he has a lifetime take of I think it's close to $500,000 from APAC or APAC affiliated.
I believe it's the conservative estimate is over 800,000, and the
Okay.
more accurate estimate is 2.7 million.
And in that type of talking one way on the campaign trail and then behaving another way behind the scenes or when you're in office, I think it's a type of politics that people are growing increasingly sick of. And hearing you speak about issues, it does not sound like something that is consultant manipulated or means tested. People are looking for some moral clarity, some moral and political courage. And when you're talking about concern and care for vulnerable populations in front of people, but then going behind their back in voting to throw those communities under the bus, it really leaves a bad taste in folks' mouth.
Yeah.
And do you feel like one thing that is always interesting is Democrats are always talking about they're always pointing the finger at Trump and the Republicans and how they're trying to thwart the democratic process, and that they're undermining the democratic process. I know that your opponent, Chris Pappas, has really gone out of their way to not acknowledge the fact that they are currently in a primary. Do you feel like voters and the democratic process so far in this race has been respected? Do you think that it's been given a fair shake?
Unfortunately, so I do want to make a distinction. So I'm a Democrat. I'm in the
Sure.
Democratic Party.
Yeah.
But there's a huge difference between someone like me versus, say, Chuck Schumer, who's also a Democrat.
Yeah.
So sometimes I have to be a little careful when I'm talking that I don't want to. I'm not talking about the base. I'm talking about like the DNC, the
Oh,
leadership.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
So, for example, if we look at the course of the last 50 years, the Democratic or the conservative movement has moved from being Republicans to going to MAGA. Or I should say the Republican Party has moved from being conservative to going MAGA. And in the process, the Democratic Party should have stayed true to its core. Unfortunately, the leadership, and I'm not talking about the voters, I'm not talking about the folks in the State House, these are wonderful public servants. I'm talking about just the Chuck Schumers of our party, for lack of a better term. Instead of staying true to our core values of democracy, they actually chased the MAGA and moved further right. And that's why there's this huge disparity between the Chuck Schumer politicians of our party versus the base. The base is not happy. The base is upset because the Chuck Schumers of our party are answering to the donor class, not to the people anymore. We are now almost as unpopular as Donald Trump. Sometimes we are a little less popular. Sometimes we're just about
it's
a
like a
little
race
more
to the
popular.
bottom.
But Donald Trump is got to be at the same level or just a few points above or under is terrible. So why are we so unpopular as a party? We should be very popular given that Donald Trump is tanking our economy. Gas prices are up, grocery prices are up. Not only did he not stop the war in Gaza and Ukraine, he started another war in Iran. He attacked Venezuela. That's millions and billions of our dollars being wasted. So then why is the Democratic Party not popular? Because people think of the Democratic Party by Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries and Chris Pappas, these folks who are basically corporate politicians answering to the donors. Chris Pappas's biggest donor is by far AIPAC, American Israel Public Affairs Committee. One of Donald Trump's biggest donors is AIPAC.
Mm-hmm.
What exactly are they offering that's different? And that's true for Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer also.
Right.
So when we call Hakeem Jeffries or Chuck Schumer spineless, we're actually excusing their behavior. They're not spineless. They're controlled opposition. We need to get rid of these controlled opposition. We need to go back to our true core democratic values. I'm a progressive Democrat, but the term progressive is actually just means 50 years ago, we would have been a regular Democrat, like we're an FDR Democrat.
Yeah.
Whereas what we are calling the Schumer politicians or the Schumer Democrats would have been maybe Reagan Republicans. So like the way Pappas votes, sometimes you see that he's very conservative in his votes. He votes like a Republican or old school Republican.
Yeah.
I don't mind a big tent. I don't mind that. That's what we have to always be. This is another one of those DC consultant messaging that most probably has been tested and now is being used by the Schumers and the Pappases of our party to basically say, to basically allow them to still be considered Democrats, even though they don't act like a Democrat. Now there's constantly using the term, our party is a big tent party, big tent, basically to say they should still be part of the party. Anyone can be part of the party. Anyone can be part of the party as long as you still believe in a livable wage, Medicare for all, taking care of the people right here, unions, workers' rights, not exploiting workers, people over politics, people over corporations, people over party, not being complicit in genocide, not being complicit in war profiteering, not answering to donors. As long as you're staying true to those democratic values, sure, let's have a big tent party. But don't bring all those kind of dishonest politics into this tent, because that's not welcome.
Yeah, the big tent metaphor or analogy is interesting, because as it's almost as if the base of the party, the voters, are picking up the tent and moving it further to the left. And the Chuck Schumers, the Hakeem Jeffries, and the Chris Pappases of the world are saying, no, we can stay right here, but we just need to make the tent bigger, and meanwhile,
they keep moving further right, that our tent has to keep getting bigger to allow them to stay.
It's a stretch limousine tent now.
Stretch limousine.
And then you'll have, Jamie Harrison, former chair of the DNC, telling, progressives or Democratic Socialist candidates that, if they don't like the party, they should go and start their own. It's like, be careful what you wish for. But
I want the Schumers and the Pappases out of the party. I'm sorry, you're not acting like Democrats. You act like old school Republicans. Worse off, even old school Republicans, I don't mind as long as they're honest. I'm not against conservative movement. I'm not against that. I'm against people who are not honest and accountable to the people.
It's being able to know where people stand on issues. I'm a Bernie, progressive.
I'm a Bernie Democrat too. Or I call myself an FDR Democrat, actually.
And like, if you're someone who's getting your talking points from corporations, like, of course your principles are going to change over time because they're very flexible. But if you're someone who's rooted in values and principles that are consistent across the board, you at least, even if you are going to disagree on outcomes or solutions, you at least know where the other person is coming from. And again, when you're talking to Chris Pappas, it might sound like he cares a lot about, treating our immigrant neighbors humanely, but do his votes reflect that? It's pretty clear that they don't. I wanted to kind of leave our conversation with, before I let you make a final pitch and talk about the final stretch, money in politics. You've mentioned it a couple times here. As I've said to people, and my audience knows, that if I had a magic wand and could make one change in government, if I was king for a day, it would be getting rid of the influence of money in politics, because it's such a domino issue for everything else that, negatively impacts our society. I know that, both at the national DNC level and also with the state New Hampshire Democratic Party, uh, they've been basically aligned in rejecting measures that ban dark money influences in politics, and also rejecting measures that would exclude the influence of APAC aligned spending in our democratic primaries and processes. I know earlier this spring you had made that a point based on your experience of kind of having that cause and effort shut down. Um, what does that signal to you for the priorities of a Democratic Party that, again, is very unpopular? Many young people are becoming disillusioned with it. And it seems like time and time again, they're choosing corporations, donors, and potential foreign influences over the will of their base and the people who make up the Democratic Party.
Yeah. So, in my opinion, any candidate or lawmaker who takes even a single dollar from corporate PACs or corporations is no longer a public servant. They're just a contractor for their client.
Mm.
And if they're a lawmaker, you can see it in their votes. A lot of times you can connect a certain donation to a vote. If people are disgusted by that, they should rightfully be so.
Mm.
If you want to serve corporations, go join a corporation. Don't go to DC to represent the people and then serve a corporation. So this is my baseline idea. I served on the board of an organization called Open Democracy Action. I'm still a member of it. That was an organization founded by Granny D. Haddock. She was 89 years of age when she walked all the way from California to Washington, D.C. to basically tell us that big money in politics was the greatest threat to our democracy. And that was even before Citizens United passed. And now the floodgates of dark money have opened up. Nearly 94% of our Congress members are compromised and they're both parties.
Mm-hmm.
It is not a reflection of regular folks. We sometimes have been duped to believe in certain people as public servants when they were just a corporate servant. We need to get money out of politics. We have to. And the way every voter needs to decide is to look at where the donations are coming from. I don't take any money from any corporations, just regular folks. That means I'll only answer to regular folks. So this is one thing. How can we fix this problem? Well, it starts with voting. Vote for the right candidate. Vote for the right person. Make sure that if honesty, integrity, and accountability are values that you want to uphold, then vote for people who align with those values. Don't go to the ballot box and feel you are compelled to vote for someone who does not align with your values just because we've been programmed to vote for the lesser of two evils or vote out of fear. There's a lot of voting out of fear that the DC consultants pour on us. We have to constantly compromise our values to meet the needs of the candidate. If the candidate is faulty, that's not the voter's fault. The voter should say, okay, sorry, the Democratic candidate, the Republican candidate did not meet my expectations or my values, and so I'm not going to vote. And that is every single person's right. It's not the voter's job to modify who they are in order to fit the candidate's background. It should be the candidate that should earn the voters' support.
It's a treat to have the ability to vote for someone, and voting is it's like taking your vitamins. It's just, it's one small part of how we dig ourselves out of this hole. But it is really nice to be able to not have to go into the voting booth and hold your nose while you're doing it.
That's another DC consultant thing, Stephen. Like the two things that we've been taught as a people is vote for the lesser of two evils. Think about it. How much millions of dollars was poured in just to get us to brainwash us into being able to recite this over and over again? I had to pick candidate A over candidate B because they were the lesser of two evils. Well, the lesser of two evils is still evil. I don't think this is fair to a voter. And the other one is hold your nose at the ballot box or say a small prayer before you cast the vote. Why? So this is one thing. We have to get money out of the federal government, but we also have to get it out of the state government. We have to get it out of the parties. But the lowest bar is just to get it out of your own life, your own campaign, your own candidacy. You don't need to overturn Citizens United to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So my opponent may talk a lot about and how he wants to end Citizens United. Because I called him out for his corruption, I called him, I said, who better to beat a corrupt Democrat and a Republican than an anti-corruption candidate?
Mm-hmm.
Now he calls himself that. Like, please, I mean, that's almost funny. Like, dude, you actually represent the corruption in Congress.
Yeah.
Like, don't deceive us anymore. You're taking money, just own up to it, and you have millions. I mean, you have to understand, the 8 out of 10 times the campaign with the most money wins. So there's an 80% chance Pappas will win. So Pappas, you don't have to deceive people anymore. You took money, you can pour those money into buying ads, buying mailers, and buying votes. Go for it. Don't deceive people anymore. I don't like it when crooks are not, or corrupt people are not. I like people. Just be honest.
It's almost one of the. It's almost one of the, and I'll say this so that way you don't get in trouble, but it's almost one of the admirable things about Trump is that he's just so blatant about his pure, corruption. There's really no hiding it with him. He's very transparent about it, and everybody knows it. And it is a contrast of your typical kind of politician, which is normally, it's the fox that's lurking, around and sneaking behind you instead of, confronting you to your face. So I think you've done a great job at offering a contrast. I think it's why primaries are important. You just mentioned about like getting Chris Pappas to take a stance against corporate PAC money. That doesn't happen, whether it's something he ends up fulfilling or not. Feeling the pressure to make a pledge like that doesn't happen unless there are primaries and there are people challenging these insider establishment candidates to the left. I saw you had an A rating from the Political Integrity Index, and Chris Pappas has a D. Again, it's.
Although I think they were being very nice to him. I think he deserves an F too.
Sure, it might be a little bit of a soft grader. Who knows? But we have a few weeks left until the election. This is going to come out next week, so even less time. What are you looking to see have happen over that final stretch, and what's your final pitch to voters?
I want people to learn about me. Go to my website, karishmaforsenate.com. I'm very clear about my domestic and foreign policies. I am a scientist. I clearly laid it out. I'm not trying to fool anyone. That is exactly who I'm going to be as a senator. So go, please read it, our priorities on my website. Look at my opponent's 8-year record of what he has accomplished or what he has failed to accomplish, and then judge us based on our record. The other thing that I want people to do is, if you value honesty, integrity, accountability, if you value minimum wage of at least $20 an hour, Medicare for all, sensible foreign policy, I hope to earn your vote on September 8th. Please register to vote if you have not registered already. Independents and Democrats can vote in the Democratic primary. Please register as one of those two. And plan ahead. September 8th is coming right after Labor Day weekend, a long weekend. People will come back. They'll have to run to their jobs, to the schools, doctors' visits. If you don't plan ahead, like that you need to vote before you go to work, or you need to vote during your lunch break, etc., you will forget, and the day will pass, and then be like, oh no, I forgot to vote. We only have 1 day primary, 1 day election. That's it. We don't have early voting. If you're going to be out of town, please vote absentee. Go to your town clerk or your city clerk, get an absentee ballot and fill it out and submit it. Please do that. Learn about me. I hope to earn your vote. Karishma Manzur. I'm a scientist, a progressive, a peace activist. I'm just trying to help improve people's lives, and I want you to join me. And basically, let's reclaim the power of people. So thank you.
Karishma, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for running, and best of luck down the stretch here. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you.